I'm Alex Petroyama.
And I'm Adam Clark.
And this is Safe and Sound. Brother. Episode 2.
Episode 2.
All the way through.
I'll start off episode 2 by saying, wow, what a month. There's been a lot that's happened. Thanks everyone for coming back and tuning back in. We launched episode 1 of the podcast. You lost your job with it, you know. We won't go into that much, but if anyone knows the story, it's an exhale.
Bittersweet.
But to cap it all off, you're now a dad.
Yes.
You're now a dad.
Yes.
Like, baby a tree. I saw him.
Yeah. That's why I lost my job. It was for my son.
Dude.
Yeah.
But,
for a new day, for a new light to be born, you know, when you start thinking more than just for yourself and for others, that's really what a dad is, you know. You stop thinking about yourself. But the center is still the self. So the unit of the family is still the self. And so this is all because of baby Atreyu.
Who I held like an hour ago, and he was so small and everything. Like,
he's the best.
You must be over the moon right now with it.
Brother, you shoot for the moon, you fall amongst the stars. Baby Atreyu is a star child. It was the most incredible gift. He was born March 27th, and March 27th is our anniversary. So it was a gift both to me and Paola. And 2 years ago when we got engaged, so we knew this was a special star child. It's also her brother Giorgio, who you hear the guitar tracks, his birthday. So there's a lot of Giorgio, Atreyu, we got you. So all the good vibrations seem to be coming through, and it's really, really special to share that auspicious day and just a gift of light, you know. And I think that's where I'm just grateful to be back here landing. You know, a job is a job. It's always been a devotion, as we talked about. It's always been a vocation, something greater. And I think, like, becoming a father, you start to outgrow, you know, your spaces and your places, and things start to sometimes shift around you and through you because, you know, maybe asking for more, asking what you just said, you know, knowing what your value is and exceeding where you are and being able to accept that and align with the transfer and the change is really, really important. So this has been a very humbling and very eye-opening and awakening experience. So I'm really excited to kind of dive in and get into episode 2.
You know what I love about episode 2 with it? Episode 1 is, you know, this introduction in a sense. It's who is Adam Clark, who is Alex Petroyama, and we start going into these details, and it's like, oh, this is what the podcast is, this is what's happening with it. We talk and then we do breath work, and you see a little bit of the glimpse of the story. But episode 2, everyone knows that, like, Empire Strikes Back is great. That's episode 2 of that trilogy with it. You know, all those episode 2 movies always have such a great impact because it's a return. It's a return of familiar faces, familiar characters. We don't have to introduce anymore. You know my voice. You know Alex's voice. You know what we're here for. And it's fun to be here.
Because being safe and sound gives us the space to have fun. Because again, you can't have fun unless you're safe and sound. And that's the beauty of it all, brother. And I can't thank you enough for holding the space in this beautiful place, you know, the home that is your heart. I love you, brother, and I love the community for listening in and support, and all the gracious gifts and the baby registry and everything, and all the support and all the energy and love, because at the end of the day, you know, this was a revelation that is a revolution, and that revelation that is the revolution is love. You know, what does love mean? And that's what I really want to explore in today's concept, because you know, what we call love, it's just such a term, and it's something that really needs to be explored, and just something I really want to expand upon, because it's such a special place in my heart right now with the community and true unity, and just gratitude all the way through and through.
Dude, all I can say is that it takes a lot to go from the bottom to come all the way up to the top. It takes a lot to summit to climb, to do that again and again, and to have that happen multiple times over, one after another, and to end it off with the mountaintop with Atreyu being born, looking at Paula and having that moment there. Like, what was that moment like, dude? It must have been just like looking at Paula, your partner, seeing your son.
To summit the heart is the mountain of all teachings. And, you know, we are in the year of the snake, and Atreyu is born in the year 2025, in the year of the snake, an Aries baby, little warrior. And that's where I look at it and I was like, yeah, just like a snake sheds its skin, you know, there were certain things that needed to be shed, and we have to, like the Buddhists say, we have to, or in the yogas we talk about the different states of the kleshas and the different states of attachments and suffering, but these ideas of letting things go, because they're just byproducts of the mind. And that's where that flat line comes in. Like, the mind is never really flat, but we want to get the mind as calm as we can so we can listen to the heart. Because it's funny, you want the mind to flatline, but you want the heart to continue to beat.
Yeah.
So it's like, in order to listen to the heart truly, you have to get the mind as quiet as you can.
Yeah.
And that's why the unconscious, like, constantly is purging stuff at us. Like, I've had some wild dreams since the birth of Atreyu. And that's where it's like, you know, I've had some wild thoughts, you know, lack of sleep, you know, all these things. But it's like, I guess the felt sense is like, imagine, I think this comes from a Buddhist line long ago, but imagine a thought that is unthinkable. Imagine an imagination that is unimaginable. And if you can think the thought that is unthinkable, and you can imagine the image that is unimaginable, and you can feel the feeling that is unfeelable, then you will know the truth, the way, and the light of, like, this experience, you know, of like God, or just life, creation, birth, death,
everything,
pain, sorrow. It's all, it's funny, we give labels to it all, but it's really just like I told you, a phenomenon. It's like this explosion of just
energy.
Yeah. And you're just, you know, for me, I think for Paula it's even more profound, because, you know, what came first, the chicken or the egg? It's like, you know, what came first, the male or the female? Like, what came first, you know? And I feel like in my heart and soul, like, I feel like this goddess energy gave birth in the universe. And, you know, creation is really, you know, that love and reverence and respect is given to the feminine, because, again, the amount of suffering they have to endure for life to be here and now, it's remarkable. And there's no words to express the amount of gratitude and reverence and respect that I feel after witnessing it. And there's no book or movie that can prepare you for the live experience. It's so visceral, and it's orgasmic. It's so heart just expanding. It's beautiful, brother. I wish it for those who, you know, wish to seek it. You know, I it's not for the light of heart. I don't think it's for everyone. I don't think kids are I don't think anything is when the shoe fits all, for, you know, the glove fits all. I don't think so. No one size fits all. I just think, like, for those who wish it, you know, I truly think that if I would have known what I know now, if I'm reverberating what I would like to say to myself earlier, it's just, if I could have taken that unconditional approach, which I knew, but now I know so much more through the experience, because that's how it's always given. Like, listening to the first podcast brought so much solace to myself by listening back to that first conversation. I feel like listening back to this conversation will bring more of that.
You know what? Let's take it one step further. This will be a conversation, and this is a moment in which maybe Atreyu listens to this 10 years from now. What do you want to say to him?
I would first I just really like to breathe on him. So the first thing, I think my students love this too. I think we're just we just breathe with each other. And I think that's one of the most important things. And what I learned from the first podcast, the second one, is not to exhale directly on the mic. Up to the side. When I'm with Atreyu, I do like to breathe on him because I feel that breath is just, you're just, when you're like the birth of him coming through, the breath is just what you're feeling in your heart. Like, is he alive? And even now, still, like when we check in on him, like the fear and the hope is he alive?
Yeah.
It's like one emotion. I hope he's alive. I fear he's not alive.
50.
Right? We're on day 6 right now. We're recording this podcast now. I'm like, finally, I've gotten a little bit of sleep that I can be with Adam today and record this podcast with all the emotions intact. But it's like, is he alive? And the fear and the hope of that. And the whole way through, and I'm still talking to Atreyu, but Atreyu truly, like, as your father, which is a totally different experience than your mother. The experience for me was like, as everything is coming through, all these different things that we keep talking about, and so much more. And again, everyone can relate to it because life just constantly just weaves all these things, envelops all these things. Is I just kept trying to fear nothing, hope nothing, and remain in a state of being free. Because the moment I would hope something for Atreyu, or the moment I would fear something for Atreyu, it always kind of went sour, or it, strayed from the path.
Yeah.
Meaning like being present or being here. Because, last year my word was patience, and this year my word was presence. So that's why I say stray from the path. Whenever I'm being present, like this year, is like, I know I'm here, I'm now. And even we talked about in our own side talk, in our own friendship, it's like, I really feel that. And that's what I would say to Atreyu. It's like right now, it's like whenever I'm not in presence, and which is to be present. So it's the here and now, the now being present, and the here being my presence. That's when I stray from the path. That's my journey of straying from the path, which is not a wrong thing. It's just being awake to what it is. So that's why first and foremost, the breath, I like to breathe on them, because that's my way of just being present and starting to feel my presence. How not just like, it's not just a feeling state of like, how am I doing? It's like, how am I doing for him?
Yeah.
He has nothing to do for me. That I think is a father who, had me and Paolo make the joke, like an immaculate child, like immaculate conception child. Like we didn't choose this birth. He was magically made. Well, we're pregnant. Wow. Okay. Well, lucky us. We're in a loving relationship of, unconditional love, that we can accept this gift, unconditionally. Because there's a lot of conditions that, people can put on when you're not ready. And, some people aren't ready for a child. But we were ready. But we had to also get ourselves ready.
Yeah.
And again, that also has its own story of being present. And so I would say, like, through the breath, as we breathe, especially when I breathe with him, I breathe on him. That's how he knows I'm breathing. I'm there. But it puts me into a state of, being present with my presence, and I'm now present with his presence. And we are one, like we're one genetically, but we're also one epigenetically in the experience of this moment. So that experience is being already cultivated together. What I really, really love through that, and what I would tell him, is like, this is it. Like, this is all I want from you. There's nothing more I want from you. I have no desire. It really doesn't matter what he chooses to do in life or what he has in life. He can do and have whatever he wants. It's his life. He's a free soul. Like I said, he's an immaculate conception for us. Like we weren't planning to have this child now. We were planning to have this child in 2 years from now, when we were more stable and more grown up, and we had gone through these different things that we had gone through, without being pregnant at the same time. So that was the way we looked at it from like our lens. But I feel like what I would say to Treyu is just like, that's, as all parents know, that's not how life works. You know, and those who are able to be organized, planned, great. You know, we just accepted what was given to us and we aligned with it. And as we aligned from it, like things started happening, like, oh, we need to shift apartments. Oh, I've lost my job now because, you know, I'm now thinking for 3. And, you know, I'm in a workplace where I started as a single person, you know, and so where I started from, you know, working as a yoga teacher was I was single, and then I met my partner, and then we got engaged, and then now I'm thinking for 2, and now I'm thinking for 3 because she got pregnant. So as that continues to grow, and not all, you know, spaces and places are receptive to that sort of growth, and that's where I look at, you know, things like this podcast. We're able to kind of express that kind of human experience without the human experience, without the,
there's no strings.
Yeah, without the attachment, without the pains and sorrows, as Shakespeare would say, of like outrageous misfortune. You know what I mean? Like,
I hear that.
That's, you know, the outrageous misfortune. It's like, no, like what was learned from that? What was garnered? What was gathered? And I think sitting here right now in reflection with you, it's like, I would tell Atreyu, again, circling back, it's like, I just want him to have many moments that take his breath away. I want him, through those moments that take his breath away, to be able to catch his breath, be able to reflect on that breath, allow those moments to take his breath, let him go beyond, like, you know, struggle through it, you know, or if he's training, like push himself to that level, but then to come back and, you know, to catch one's breath and to integrate it, reflect, and then bring it back into balance. Not a flat line.
Yeah.
For the mind, flat line, but, you know, come back to the heart. Come back to your, you know, your essential nature. Come back to your, you know, your beat. Because even at the hospital, brother, they kept saying, like, they kept monitoring the heart rate. Heart rate goes up, heart rate goes down. They were monitoring like the sweet zone of like, this is like, you know, medically, allopathically, Western medicine, what they're like, this is a safe zone. You know, we defer to them. This is absolutely it. But I think spiritually, like, we all have a safe zone for ourselves where we feel like we're at the right heart rate. That's what I would wish for Atreyu. I just hope he keeps his rate of heart, you know, at the right level for him. I do like different hand things, head massage, cranial sacral. So I'm just doing a whole bunch of things, and certain things are helping him kind of, you know, cope with the lack of, I want milk. And I think for me, it's really fun to just kind of empower him with these skills to just be present with his presence before he even knows what that is. He's just a being, and together we're just, I think the height of it, Adam, honestly, is like Atreyu. It's for your father right now. I've never felt what it is to be a family. I've had great friends. That's one thing I've had in my life, great friends. And I've had a beautiful family in my life, but to have my own family, I've never experienced until literally yesterday, last night, when I saw him, Paola, and me all together as one, and we slept together in the same bed. That was like, oof, that was the power of 3 to be, and that was like, wow.
I just think it's amazing, man. It's one of those things with it, which is like, I know. I know how much you went through this month, and to see you days after the birth, and to see you here in front of a microphone, to see you expressing, like, it feels like a tidal wave of, like, amazing tidal wave of, like, this emotion and this reverence and this feeling and this awe of what life is, and this new, it's almost like a new chapter. And to see you turning that page so gracefully forward is so amazing, man, because I know it's tough, but I know it's also rewarding at the end of the day.
So the reverence, and I love that you know, prayer hands, because I love that, because I love that so much, because it's it's not a platitude. We're not just saying things because it's like, this is the thing you should say, or, you give this wish because, this is, someone's birthday and you give this wish, or this is a special day of the year and you have to say this certain thing. It's like, this is all being said because this is all what it is.
Yeah.
When one goes through it, I'm just expressing it my way. Like I said, to summit the heart is the mountain of all teachings. It's like, once you really realize what unconditional love is, you just take your path, which means you can do it any way you want. And that feeling of that freedom is what I was expressing. I'm like, oh, what would you tell Atreyu? It's like, just be free.
Yeah.
Because the freedom, and let's put it this way, the lack of freedom is what led to all those conditions. And when we dealt with all those conditions, it brought us right back to a state of unconditionalism.
Yeah.
And I think that's a new word, unconditionalism.
I love it. Unconditionalism. It's coined here on the Safe and Sound podcast.
One of the Safe and Sound lexicon of language is unconditionalism. When you have unconditionalism, it means there's no condition, which is, honestly, truly, like, you can have, if you do not have children, you can have it for yourself. If you do not have a partner, you can have it for yourself. If you don't have a child, you can have it for yourself. So start with yourself. Start loving the inner child that is yourself. But when we say the inner child that is yourself is where you evolve into once you have a partner, and then once you have a child, that's the external form of what I'm talking about internally.
I get that.
So we can all do it. And that's why I said it's not meant for everyone. It was always 50-50 for me. Will I have a child? Will I not have a child? I gave myself till 40. I'm 38 right now sitting here with you. So it was like I was getting pretty close to that timeline, But, like I said, this was not planned. So this was a gift. This was a gift that, both Pal and I accepted, because it's not just one person. It's not like the penguin and the egg. It's all dad, or, it's all mom. It's like, no, we're both in this together as human beings. And I think that I do feel, though, that the woman does a whole lot more than the man. Truly. I think it's like yin and yang. It's 52% woman and 48% man. Just like we talked about, who wins the race? Is it the tortoise or the hare? The race is life, and the tortoise is the feminine, and the hare is the masculine. So the tortoise represents the yin, and the hare represents the yang. And so, of course, in this, it's not a tie. It's not like yin and yang. Balance is not 50-50. Balance is just slightly off 50-50. And, that's a really important lesson to learn in this life. There's a lot of homage, a lot of respect and reverence to be paid for the feminine, and also the feminine in ourselves. But, just going through this whole experience, and I love my son, and I love my son unconditionally, but I love my partner so much more. Unconditionalism came from that experience with her, because truly, Adam, like, when you see what, woman, your partner has to go through, it's next level, brother. It is next level. And, just all the women out there listening who've had children or will have children, just, I can't thank you enough, because, again, no movie or no book in the world, nothing that I've heard will ever prepare me, and I hope this comes out as a beautiful message out to the world, will ever prepare anyone for the live experience. So, buckle your seatbelts and, get ready for the ride of your life, because no matter what, it always is the most incredible experience ever. It really, really was, brother. And, I don't know if we'll do it again. I just so wanted to.
It's like me after Top Gun at Wonderland. It's like, oh, I did it once. That's good for me.
Top Gun unstrapped.
Yeah,
unstrapped. Somehow you survived it. That's how it feels. Like somehow you landed back in the seat at the end of it. Want to do that again? No,
I don't. That was once in a lifetime.
The midwife looked at us afterwards. She's like, "You decide in 2 years." So me and Paolo both said we can laugh and joke about what our decisions are, but we'll give it 2 years. And we can't thank the midwives enough. They were so wonderful, and the pediatrician as well. They were, again, everyone on both levels. I can't say that enough. And I hope people listen, because everyone, we had so many different opinions, but it's like of how things should be done. But at the end of the day, it's just to summit the heart is the mountain of all teachings. Like, just go your way, and if you go your way with true intention, which is to be pure of heart. Just quiet the mind and just go the way you know in your heart. Even if you go the wrong way, it's the right way, because the wrong way is just teaching, oh, too thick over here, we got to go left instead of right, and then gives you the strength. So every mistake we made was just giving us that strength that we needed, like the butterfly and the chrysalis, to kind of break through.
Moving upwards with that.
Moving upwards and onwards. It's not just upwards, but onwards.
I have a question. For me, it's a little bit personal, but it's also like, you talked about this before with recognizing the inner child and, the inner child in you. And when that inner child looks on at such a major event like this, you have a conversation with them, you speak and communicate with them. And for you, your inner child, it must have been an interesting voice for you to sort of stand there in the room and have you, Paula, the Atreyu being born, all the staff, and then have this inner child watching a sort of a third person perspective there. I often feel like in my life, my inner child is watching from a third person perspective, and I'm trying to show him a stronger path forward, a stronger way forward, that life gets better, that you can be strong in the face of these oppositions, and when it gets down, when it gets dark, when it goes like a heart rate, and when your heart's beating so fast, you can find a way to soothe. You can find a way to become grounded. You can find a way to grow. So I guess at the long end of my question is how did you communicate with your inner child in these moments where your mind and your body were all out of sorts and you had to find center?
In my own practice, because I think inner child work is always a practice. All of this is a practice. It's always experiential based. That's why I love this podcast so much, because it's really encouraging people to take a more experiential perspective. There's lots of things in life, we're here to learn from other people's podcasts and other books and films and, trainings, but those accolades can become just that. They can actually become shackles. They can start to, put us into captivity rather than captivate us, and so it's almost like a double-edged sword. So it's really, really important to, realize that it's our own experience that we're really chasing and we're really seeking, and that's what's being sought. So one of the things that I want to start first and foremost before we get into it is just a simple practice so people understand what they can do right away. Is just take a picture of yourself as a young child, something that inspires you, a favorite picture of yourself, and just pin it on your wall or a mirror where you can see it every day.
Yeah.
I still do this practice to today, where I always have a picture of myself just around where it's a very young child that I can just witness and see. And most people don't do. They grow up, and you start putting pictures of inspirations and other things. But the greatest inspiration, there should always be a picture of yourself as a young child. So this is a really important one to have. So once you have that, it's something to look at. So that gives you that third person perspective. That's the first and foremost. So you start to create that kind of relationship with your inner child, that your inner child is looking at you. So one of the questions I ask myself first and foremost, before I get to this part, more in the present, which is, if little Alex was looking at big Alex, would little Alex think I'm a cool guy? Or would little Alex think I'm like fun? Or would little Alex like the stuff in my apartment? Or would little Alex be able to play in my apartment? Would little Alex like the fact that big Alex is in an apartment? You know what I mean? Like these things where it's like, if you were to take your inner child and walk around your space and walk around every item that you have, would it be too grown up for him? Would it not be fun? Would it not be playful? All these things that, the inner child represents, innocent. What are they for? And are they just materialistic things? Are they things to attract, whatever? Again, each their own, and, different dharmic lives. But this is just a practice I do. So my inner child walks around, and I walk around my space with my inner child after looking at the image of the picture. And then I walk around my space and I kind of look at all my things and I say, little Alex would think this is so cool. Little Alex would think this is so special. He would love to be here and he would never want to leave. And then you can even do that with your fridge and your food, Yeah. Little Alex loves popcorn and chips. Is there popcorn and chips always available in the house? although this sounds counterintuitive to many, health diets and regimens of fitness and strength.
Oh, come on. We all have that secret supply of popcorn.
We need to have our inner child food always available to us. It's very, very important for our spiritual development, so I think that's first and foremost, just lay the groundwork of like, there's so many ways to do inner child work. This is just one of the ways I do inner child work. So I always make sure like, that's my space and my environment is, receptive to my inner child. My inner child was exploding at the seams of the amount of novelty that was occurring during this whole birth process of Atreyu. Like, my inner child saw this little baby being born and the miracle of birth, because again, it's new. I've never seen this with my eyes, with my spirit, with my soul. The eyes are the window to the soul. So my soul had never seen a child being born. So for me, it was like my inner child that's looking through, what I call the heart, which is the inner child. It's like pure being. It's like, whoa. It's like, it was just like, it was so immaculate and immense, and it was so overwhelmed. So it's almost like when you're laughing and crying at the same time.
Yeah.
It's like when you look at a child and laughing and crying at the same time, and it's just like, are they sad? Are they happy? I'm not quite sure. And it was like, for the first moment, it's like I really understood what that was. It was like, it was the agony and the ecstasy and the pain and the bliss, and it was all happening, and I don't know what's going on, and everyone else knows what's going on, but I don't know what's going on, but I'm here to support. I'm doing a great job supporting, but I actually have to surrender and let go, and I have no idea. It's just all of it. And I think that's like the cosmic explosion that is life. It's like when life really is that, it's not there's no straight lines in life. There's no straight lines in nature. There's no such thing as a straight line. I think as we continue to progress into these conversations and into like what it really is, it's like we keep seeing spirals and spirals and golden ratios, and this energy of like things are looping. Why? Because we're learning the lesson, and if we're not learning the lesson, then maybe we're spiraling within ourselves. We're going downward, inward, towards depression, or towards like whatever it is that's that downward, inward spiral, but the outward spiral of expanding outward, the excitement, it's growing outward. It's just so beautiful to be going and moving in that direction. So my inner child was like a whirling dervish. It was just spinning, and just, there just wasn't enough joy that can be encapsulated in that moment. But again, funny enough, there was also not enough agony and pain.
That couldn't be.
So it's not that we're going to do it again tomorrow. Let me emphasize that. It's like, it's perfectly balanced, and that's where the midwife said, like, there's certain hormones and things that make, mothers forget about, the trauma and pain of it all. And then you kind of get baby brain again. Then you want to have another baby again. They're like, and then you're back in the, the hospital or, the birthing center where we're at home. And you're like, why am I doing this again? What happened? How did I not remember all this stuff? So, nature puts its, places intact. But I think that's the fun part, is like the inner child was, super elated. I'm super grateful to have a little buddy, and that's how I see my son. I don't see him as someone who, like, as a commodity, as something I own. I see him as like, again, I just see him as his own person, as his own sovereign being that is, again, dad and mom are cool. We're going to be in a loving relationship till we die. Like, we have our own thing going on. He's not even the love of my life. Paolo's the love of my life. You know what I mean? He's just the extension of that love. So that's where I really look at it, and I was like, that's what this whole yoga, meditation, martial arts thing is really about. It's about like figuring it out for yourself first. So when you have it figured out for yourself first, you can go back into the mystery and the magic and the not knowing, like you saw me when you said like the human part. But if you have practices, whether they be yoga, martial arts, meditation, whatever the spiritual practice is for the spirit, you get back on the course, because, everywhere is here and now as always. So there's nothing more sacred than here and nowhere more special than now. So here we are in this moment, and it brings you back to that. And you're like, right, now I'm this. And like we said earlier today, when you got to meet my son, now I'm a dad. And it's like a new label.
You're a dad.
Great. It really just translates as unconditionalism, more love.
Love.
I have more love now.
I hit a moment of love, and now I'm at more love.
I didn't know it was possible, but somehow it's unconditional. So it is possible. There's more of that. So that's what's the special part. And, I think also, too, for those who have suffered the opposite of that, there is less of that. And that's also part of it, too. God forbid anything happens, on the opposite side of things. Yeah. That's also part of it, too. So the loss or the longing or the loneliness, all these things, or, the pain, the sorrow, the agony, these are also here, as lessons. And although we might not wish them, we do have to accept them and allow them in. And even like in our friendship, we've already now been friends long enough to get to the point where we've had to say on my end, I'm sorry, that I wasn't, fully present, because that's never a great place to be for someone whose intention for 2025 is to be, more present and to things. So it's important to always realize that there's a humility to all of this, and it's not all again, there's no straight lines in life.
There's none with it. I think it's interesting because we talk about the one side and we talk about the other side. We talk about the mix of emotions. We talk about the inner child, which is a representation of being subjected to these emotions when you're little and maybe not having a great time, or maybe being surrounded by love or not being surrounded by love, and those imprinting on you and cascading outwards into your life and creating a wound or creating something that carries forward into your adulthood. But then we also talk about, we meet that with birth, we meet that with life, we meet that with that ability to start again and see a new child being brought into this world, and this child who you now have an ability to look at and be like, well, this is what I want for you. And that must just be, that intersection, that crossroad with it must just feel so unique as a dad.
Yes.
And I guess that maybe is what it is to be a dad. It's the intersection of your child with the inner child, and that moment of birth, and that moment cascades forward into, I want you to have the best childhood possible. I also want you to learn from what I learned from, and I want to carry this forward, and I don't want to transfer the wound to you, and I want to continue to cascade forward into just love. I want to tumble forward into love.
This is how I know you're ready to be a dad.
Yeah.
Because you are talking from a place of, you're already thinking outside yourself, right? You have it for yourself. Once you have it for yourself, then you can give it to someone else. I truly believe this. Again, I say this to all people, and we're not talking about children, anything in life. But with children, it's almost the most sensitive thing, because that's the thing that's really going to pass, what you call the wound. Don't take anyone, or especially ourselves, too seriously. So at the end of the day, we want it to be this way where, we want them, the children, to have it better than we had it. But our generation wanted us to have it better than they had it. And it just keeps going and perpetuating forward. So you can always hear it in someone when they're ready to when they're openly expressing that expression that you just said of like, once you have it, once I have it, then I want to, give it to the thing. But it's very hard for people who don't have it to then give it. Because if you don't have it, then you're just giving the wound.
Yeah.
You don't know you're giving the wound. So then the real work of this meditation, maybe today, is like we go into a little bit of like talking about, what is that condition?
Yeah.
Because that's what the wound is. The wound is a condition. So for me, it's like I inherited two conditions, one from mom, one from dad. The first one from dad was wanting to be right. And it's not a wrong thing for wanting to be right. It's just a thing that came about me and my dad's relationship. And whenever I'm in a state of wanting to be right, that's my wound.
Yeah.
It's my, toxic masculine relationship with my dad coming through into a new moment with masculine or feminine, whatever it's happening in this way. And then with my mom, it's wanting to be heard. Because, it's a little different than being right. When you want to be heard, it's not about being right. It's about someone actually listening. It's that one step further. It's like whether they're right or wrong. It's just, am I even being heard?
Is it making an impact?
I'm making it. Yeah. Like, do I exist?
Yeah.
So I want to be right, which is more like the logical, the masculine. And then I want to be heard, which is more the emotional, the feminine.
Yeah.
So for me, that's the alchemy. There's my dad and there's my mom, and that's the wound. So when I find myself in a position of, I want to be right. Well, that's that toxic masculine coming through. That's that unhealthy relationship I have with my dad coming through. Oh, I want to be heard. Oh, that's that unhealthy relationship with my mom coming through. That's that toxic relationship coming through with my mom. So as we go through it, once you identify in yourself, it takes a lot of work to identify what those conditions are. I always say it's like, and maybe this is something we can kind of have as a side road if people are interested in, but maybe doing, not just inner child work, but getting to the wound, because the wound of the inner child is when the innocence breaks. So when you lose the innocence. And so when you lose that innocence, and to each their own, it's always different, but basically to understand what that core issue is. And I always say, for those who know mathematics, like getting to the square root.
Yeah.
Right? So the square root the lowest common denominator of the square root. So it's like the square root of 14 is 4.
Yeah.
But that's not the lowest common denominator. The lowest common denominator is 2. Right? But you can't go lower than 2. That's it. That's as low as you can go. Right? Because there's nothing that can break down 2.
Yeah.
Right? So that's where you get it to. And then once you understand that, you can really work with kind of like the mathematics of what it is. And that's what I did for myself. But once you understand that, it's like now I'm aware of the wound that I could pass to Atreyu, which is, if he wants to be right, so be it. Let him be right. Like I don't have to have that opposition that maybe I had with my father, or he cries. That doesn't bother me. He just wants to be heard. Like it's let the boy cry. He's emotional. Let him cry. Yeah. He doesn't have to not cry, right? You're just staying kind of in balance with it. But again, I'm not saying my parents were like, don't do that, don't do that. It's just like what I inherited through them. All right. It has nothing to do with them. They both didn't want that for me either, but we all get imprinted and we all sort of feel this sort of, how can we make it better for the next generation? The greatest thing we can do is just heal our own wounds. Yeah. So my wounds are, and this has nothing to do with my mom and dad. I want to be right and I want to be heard. That's my wound. So it's funny being on this podcast. This podcast is not about being heard or being right. As we said, it's about the expression of the experience.
I think of it sometimes when we sit down the podcast, and I remember when we were first early on with this and we were trying to come up with an idea of what this podcast was. Was there a format? Was there anything else to it? And I truly think at the end of it, sometimes it's just expression. Sometimes it's just speaking from the heart. Because I hate to say it, it's very rare that you can get two guys in the room sometimes with it who just speak from the heart with it and sit and talk with each other and move through these emotions and talk about it, communicate, touch on all of these different things, and most importantly, sometimes dig deeper, dig into that wound, dig into that portraying shadow that lurks in the distance with it, and find a point and look into it, look into that moment. You talked about your wound. Mine is that I need to fight. Mine is that I feel unheard and I need to fight. And that comes out in different ways with it. The being unheard stems so much from being bullied, growing up, and, you know, it's hard to talk about, but it feels comfortable to sit here and communicate with you about it. And maybe as we evolve, maybe as we talk on this podcast, we'll get more into it. But more and more I want to say is that, like, just touching on that wound, touching on that moment, being here with you and communicating about it, that's deep, man.
Why don't we just take a moment to just do a little practice right now? Because this is a perfect place to conclude, because, you know, that ability to say in one hand that this is a place of expression, and then the other hand say it's hard to express, is why we move to the practice. Because that's a natural feeling, and that's why we're here together. And that's why this is, for me, not touching my wound. This is not about being heard or being right, because again, that's not the intentionality of this podcast. The intentionality of this podcast, especially this episode, is that unconditionalism. Yeah. And I think if we can just drop in, even just for a couple minutes, and connect with that inner child, and just kind of maybe soothe that wound. Yeah. Because again, the healing of the wound will happen over time, but we can soothe it a little bit right now. So let's just take a position, a comfortable position, lying down or sitting up. And what we want to do right now is we want to access kind of the emotional aspect of our spirit, of our hearts. And we're just going to make the sound ha. And it's a very beautiful sound. There's a lot to it. It's the sound of the sun. And so I'm just going to kind of move away from the mic when I say this sound, because it can be a little bit hard on the ear. But you just want to openly express the sound of ha. So you just make the sound ha. And just kind of let your body sink into that. Now, deep breath in through the nose as you lift yourself up. Hold yourself up. And then exhale. I want you to sink into your heart every time. And as you inhale up, you're going up the mountain. As we summit the heart, that's the mountain of all teachings, up with the breath. And then exhale. We're going to do that for 3. Deep breath in. Top of the mountain. Back into the deep canyon of the heart. 2. Deep breath in. And last one, deep breath in. Hold it at the top. I want you to feel the view. I want you to put your hands on your heart. I want you to feel it. And again, we're just soothing it, because the wound surrounds the heart. Remember, in unconditionalism, there is no condition. So the wound's just trying to get into the heart. It's like a filter on the heart. And I want you to just blast through that filter for 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. Break on through to the other side. 3, 2, exhale. Good. And just take a couple deep breaths with your hand on your heart. I like to pat my heart a little bit, just reassuring it, regardless of knowing that there's a filter there, or there's a wound there, there's something there that, you know, may not be ready to be circulated or let go. That, you know, it's okay. It's like a glacier. It's just going to take time to melt. It's okay. Right? It's okay. It's okay to be okay, and it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to talk about these things, and it's okay that it's difficult to talk about these things. That's why we have the podcast, which is a platform to talk about these things. And we also always finish with a practice, which is remembering that not everyone is ready to talk about these things. And so there's always a process or a practice to allow ourselves to still express these things non-verbally. I want to say thank you to everyone for listening. Thank you for all the blessings. This is Safe and Sound. My name is Alex Petroyama.
And I'm Adam Clark.
And together, we are safe
and sound.
Safe and Sound is brought to you by Alex Petroyama and Adam Clark. Soundtrack is by Giorgio Pasqualini.
And remember,
I fear nothing.
I hope nothing.
We are free.